Yes, I know my Carolina Tar Heels lost last night to Pitt. I'm well aware of it. I stayed up to watch the game, but it doesn't matter because with that game ending, it officially starts what's known as rivalry week here in the state of North Carolina. North Carolina versus Duke is the biggest rivalry in all of college basketball. And it, like Jay Billis likes to say, it always delivers. Never really matters which team is up, down, whatever it may be. That game is Saturday. I had to pull in some heavy hitters for today's show. RL Bynum from Tar Heel Tribune and UNC former big man Pete Chilcutt in the house, our former Believe in Hills Hoops crew, had to come in because I need to know, guys, what is going on with my Tar Heels? Like, I feel like we've had like 6 or 7 close games that we've just lost by the end of it. So we're going to talk about the state of the team. Pete's going to give us his all-time UNC starting 5. Devils Illustrated Publisher Conor ONeil will be in after that. He'll give us his Duke all-time starting 5. It's the beginning of rivalry week. I'm still excited about it. Let's go ahead and roll that intro. It's the Desmond Johnson Show.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city needs that. I've been #1, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you won't and get your weed whacked. I'm going harder than a martyr on the slaughter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's 4th and inches. I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And it is the Desmond Johnson Show, brought to you by Emergency Responders Credit Union in Winston-Salem. If you are an emergency responder living in the Triad looking for financial services, Emergency Responders Credit Union has an option for you. Located on Link Road in Winston-Salem. Make sure you check out ERCR for all of your financial needs if you are an emergency responder. Desmond Johnson in the house, RL Bynum in the house from Tar Heel Tribune, Pete Chilcutt, legendary big man from North Carolina in the house. I had to bring my guys together because, guys, I'm trying to figure this out. I don't know what's going on with Carolina. Losing to Pitt on the road, it was a tough game. It feels like they just kind of ran out of time. Your initial thoughts here, Pete, I want to start off with you. I saw a tweet right before I got on here where I probably should go look for it again, where Carolina, far back this season, has had the lead in like 5 or 6 of these games that they have lost around the 3 or 4 minute mark, and I've lost all 5 of them. What do you see? What's the number one thing you're seeing in terms of this team that they're lacking that's caused them to lose these close games? Because they're all close games. They haven't really been blown out by anybody, which is kind of an eye-opening thing too. They're just losing stuff in the last couple of minutes. What are you saying that's concerning to you?
Well, you know, how long do you have for that list? I am a Carolina guy through and through, and so I look for the good when I can see it. You know, we started out this year with some mediator, you know, kind of some promise, but we weren't quite sure how good. But then right away we saw the slow starts. That was my first indication of, you know, all things weren't good. But recently, as you said, like some of these games. Last night was a great example. I thought we played well enough to win for most of that game. You can ask for, you know, we're hitting our threes. We had some good defensive things. We made some pretty good. When Elliot Cadeau starts out aggressive, I love it. I was kind of pumped up, even though at halftime they kind of got from 10 to 2 in about 26 seconds, it seemed like.
It was like 3 possessions, yeah.
Yeah, but I was still feeling pretty good. And then that stretch right in crunch time, when we seem to not, I wouldn't say fall apart, but we don't get what we want. I'm assuming we don't get what we want unless what we want is a bad shot or a forced shot. I can't remember. I think I listened to the broadcast last night. I'm not sure who said it. I know I've heard it before last night, and that is what I think we're lacking is that at end of games is when you lean on your experience to get what you want and you force your will on the other team. And a lot of that is through experience, but also just through leadership. And I'm trying to figure out who the leader is on this team. And I don't think we have one. Like I couldn't even say we have a bad one. I don't think we have one guy that is in a position to lead that team. I think we have some younger voices that may be trying. But as far as on the court at crunch time, I don't think any of those guys are kind of bringing us or forcing our will on the other team down the stretch, and it's frustrating to see. As you mentioned, I wouldn't say it's a pattern, but it's a pattern for us not closing teams out for sure when we have a chance to. So that's what I've noticed is down the stretch. I think we're not getting anything close to what we want. I don't think.
I'll save my take for a bit. I'm gonna get you in here, RL. I did find that tweet is from Andrew Forrest, who mentioned on Twitter that UNC's had a lead with less than 3 minutes to play against Kansas, Michigan State, Florida, Stanford, and Pitt, and they lost all 5 games, which is a pretty telltale thing there. If they win just 3 of those games, they're probably comfortably in the tournament. If they won 4 of those games or all 5, they're probably a 2 seed going into the tournament. They just haven't been able to finish these games, so it's kind of frustrating that they've been this close. And then they're losing these games. You've been covering the team all year, so you've been watching this all year as well. Now that we're getting towards the halfway point of the conference season with Duke looming on Saturday, what are your concerns here with Carolina? Because it feels like a lot of it, like Pete said, I don't know if you can fix it like in the middle of the season. Like it does feel like there's a lack of leadership at the top.
Yeah, and in reality, this isn't a very good team. Everyone was hopeful at the beginning of the season, but they've not been able to put 2 halves together all year. That's been the common thread all season. In December and November, it was getting behind by double digits and then coming back in the second half. And then since the New Year's Day loss in Louisville, it's building big leads in the first half and then having it fritter away with low IQ plays, turnovers, stagnant offense. It's just maddening. And those 6 games, you take away Cal and SMU, the one-sided wins, those other 6 games, Carolina is +1 total in those games, but they've only won three of them. I mean, those are all coin flip games. They could have easily won all 6. Frankly, they could have easily lost all 6. But if they'd have won the 3 that they lost, they'd be in good position for the NCAA tournament, but not now. And it's different reasons for different games. Last night, when Pitt started switching on everything, it really threw Carolina off. It seemed like they got more stagnant. They got more into one-on-one basketball, which is not helpful, which led to less ball movement. And then also last night, you had Elliot Cadeau having a terrific first half. He gets 2 fouls, sits the last 4 minutes of the first half. That's when Pitt came back, and then he had to battle foul trouble in the second half, and he wasn't nearly as effective. And you talk about vocal leaders. This team doesn't have them. They don't have Harrison Ingram. They don't have Cormac Ryan or Armando Bacot. They don't have the vocal leaders that they need. And that's a big part. But really, they need Cadeau to stop committing the stupid fouls, to stay on the court, because generally the offense is going to flow better with him in there.
Yeah, Cadeau's been getting in foul trouble early. That's been hurting them a lot. Jay Williams, actually, on the broadcast on ESPN last night, said something that I'd kind of been thinking out loud the past couple of games watching them play. And Pete, you can probably subscribe to this. I don't know if you've been on teams that have had this, but he mentioned Pitt was about to go through the foul line. It was about 3 minutes and some change left in the second half. And Jay mentioned that, look at what they're doing right now. Pitt is huddled like at the free throw line to discuss what they're about to do. Carolina's fragmented. They're just lining up for the free throw. They were down 4 at the time. And Jay was like, I know they're down 4. The game is not over. There's 3 minutes and some change left, but their body language is suggesting the game is over. And that kind of thing. They've been bailed out a couple of times. Cadeau's 4-point play, like that kind of stuff, has kind of bailed them out and gave them some wins they probably didn't deserve to have, to be honest. But now they're in a danger zone because going to Cameron on Saturday, and I will say, having said all this, I don't think any of this really matters for Saturday, to be honest, because of the rivalry. Like, it could be a completely different switch turned on Carolina team for one night in Cameron. We've seen it before where one of these two teams is down on their luck, the other one's high. You feel like it's going to be a cakewalk, and then you get into it and you realize, oh, it's Carolina Duke. Like, it's never like this. It's going to be a tight game no matter what. This might be the year though where it's not, because Duke is looking like they might try to go 20-0 in the ACC, and I'm starting to think I don't know if there's going to be any resistance here. Pete, do you think Duke can go undefeated 20-0 in this ACC?
You know, all we heard about was once you get off the top of the ACC, it was going to be weak, and that's what's a little bit troubling. I don't know if it's as weak as people thought, but I also think that it's not nearly as strong as it has been. Can Duke go 20-0? I think they can. I'm not holding my breath on Saturday, but like you said, it is Duke Carolina. We've seen upsets happen before. I've gone into Cameron myself as a 20th ranked team and beat them when they were 1 by 20 points. So I mean, you just don't know.
Never know. Yeah.
But as per Jay Williams' comment, like that. You know, I wasn't there. I know every time we go to the free throw line under Coach Smith, and I think they still do it. They huddle up. They go over what's going on next, even if they're just small talk. They huddle up. So I don't know if there's something that's coming out of a timeout. I can't remember why they wouldn't have done that. But
it was a foul. Someone just got fouled. They're going to go to the line. So yeah.
You usually get together and obviously talk about the quick play or whatever, and you break. But I did notice that. I don't know if that's a huge deal in the big picture, but the thing I noticed down the stretch, and even timeouts before halftime, who's going to take the shot? Like it seems like it's not the one guy. Like should it be R.J. Davis? You'd think so. Obviously, that's going to be who they're preparing for. But like I see plays sometimes like was that on purpose? Like is that who they really wanted to shoot the ball? And I know you can't always get what you want. But again, you got to force your will at some point and get the shots that we want. And sometimes it's a struggle to see who's taking that shot or where that shot's coming from. And yeah, it's just frustrating. But I think the second half of the ACC for Carolina, you know, I hope we don't go into that mode of let's just get through the season. You know, it's just different these days with these guys coming in and transferring out. I'm not sure all the time that they're buying into the Carolina family because they may be leaving. But when you're part of the team that I was part of, like obviously you play the whole season out, you play every game out. Doesn't really matter. We had a tough year in the year 1990. It was a tough year for Carolina. But gosh darn it, we competed and went throughout the whole season. So I'd like to see that, but I haven't seen anything that says it's not going to happen. Let me make sure I say that. I think they're competing hard. They win a lot of those games. They play like that last night. They win a lot of games. Like they got to close them out like at the same time.
You nailed it there in terms of there's not a closer on the team. It should be R.J. Davis, but he's seen defenses that he hadn't seen in a couple of, or probably his whole Carolina career, to be honest. Because when he first got here as a freshman, they weren't guarding him that way. And then with Baycott in the paint, especially last year, they had to sag off of him, and he rode that to a first team All-American appearance. So and ACC Player of the Year. He has heated up the past 4 or 5 games. He is averaging about 18, 19 a game, I think I saw, and he is starting to get more aggressive. And I do like that they're starting to look for the big men. They're running out of big men, but I do like earlier on I noticed they weren't really dumping the ball into the paint at all. They were just kind of standing around the perimeter and just swinging it back and forth. And whoever the big man was, whether it's Jalen Washington or Van Allen Lubin or whoever, were basically setting a high screen up at the top and just running in for the rebound. Now they're actually dumping it into there. RJ in particular, it's almost like Hubert's made a point to tell him, hey, get in the paint. Like, we're shooting too many threes. Get in the paint. Don't drive and kick. Drive and score. Like, that's what we need to do to get back to Carolina basketball. Guys.
Can I speak on that real quick?
Yeah.
Because I talk, my basketball conversations are at the gym. So I'm talking to my gym bros. And you guys don't have any big men. And I'm like, the same thing you said. I said, how many times did Armando Baycott get the ball down low last year? Like up by a play, 15 times minimum.
Yeah.
How many times do we run plays for our big guys this year? We don't. It's penetration and drop-offs, it's pick and rolls. And then sometimes that's going to work. You're going to get 18 points and look great finishing. Sometimes you won't get it. You'll get 6 points. And then they're getting all the bad press. And I'm not saying these are great post players, but I'm saying they gave the ball down low yesterday to Lubin a couple of times. I liked his post moves. Like you got to run plays to go down there and then work out. That's my humble opinion. I'm not a coach. I'm not around those guys every day. So obviously they're doing what they think is best. But I have noticed a little bit more. But it's funny how we're getting the heat but yet they weren't getting any plays at the same time. And I've been in that position. Like you need some plays to be consistent in scoring and in just getting involved in the game, and they haven't really done that.
And Hill fans, it's not the end of the season. I mean, there's still like 10 ACC games left, I believe, something like that. They still have a whole half of the conference to go through. Now they do have a tough stretch here with Duke starting on Saturday. They've got Clemson, I think, on Monday at Littlejohn. I think.
Yeah, Pittsburgh again a week later, and then at Clemson in a quad one game on a Monday night.
So they still have shots here to this isn't the end of the world. It's just like this is kind of the low part here of the season with this loss to Pitt. RL, you were about to say something there?
I don't know what I was going to say.
Well, let me do it like this then real quick before we get Pete's all-time UNC starting five lineup. Thoughts on Saturday? Can Carolina go into Cameron and do you expect Carolina to go into Cameron and beat Duke on Saturday? Maybe that's a better question to ask. Like, do you expect them to recognize the rivalry, be hype off of that, go in there, play really well, which we've seen before, or is this Duke team just too much in terms of talent? Shire actually went out and got grown men to set picks this year, so it's like a little bit of a different Duke team than what we saw last year, where it was kind of like kids running around in an old man's college basketball. Does this Carolina team have enough to go into Duke and beat Duke on Saturday? Would it surprise you? Like, how much would it surprise you if that actually went down?
Well, I see RL kind of already going.
Yeah, I saw him shaking his head. He's like, nah.
I'm pessimistic a little bit, but then I watched the State Duke game a couple of days ago. State played them really well. They shot well, but even when they didn't, they hung tight. It was a close game pretty much throughout. Do I expect them to go in there and win? No. Can they go in there and compete and be in the game with 5 minutes left? Absolutely. I don't think this Duke team is that juggernaut. I think the schedule has worked out great for them, and the ACC is a little weak. They are the most talented team in the conference, but I think we could get them if we have a consistent game, maybe for the first time all year, 2 halves together, we rebound well, and we finish strong. That could happen.
RL, you're not.
I would compare the matchups with Duke to the matchups with Auburn, where they're much taller and have much more length at every position, and that was in Maui, and they lost by 13. I think if Carolina comes within 13, that might be a decent outcome. The way that they're playing right now, I just don't see that matchup being very good. And as Pete mentioned, you look at Monday's game against NC State, and my goodness, that was stunning how State stayed in the game. So maybe that gives you hope. But I think that Carolina's only shot is having multiple guys get hot from the perimeter, because like you're pointing out, they don't go inside. I mean, Lubin was setting more screens on the perimeter than he was posting up, and that's been the common thread with Jay Wash, Lubin, all the big men. So they've got to hit from the perimeter to maybe open up the driving lanes, and maybe they have a chance. I mean, the 8-20 season, they played Duke pretty well for a little more than a half, and then Duke pulled away. And I hate comparing anything to the 8-20
COVID
season,
year.
but
Yeah,
I think the Doherty year, the 8-20 season. But I think it might be kind of like that. But it's the Carolina Duke rivalry. You never know.
All right, Pete, this time, give us your all-time UNC starting five. Let's do it traditional: 2 guards, a center, 2 forwards to make it easy, because I know it's positionless basketball nowadays, but let's do it old school style.
So when I started thinking about this, I'm thinking so every player I say, I want you to guys think about their college career at that moment, not comparing them to someone else's skill level, because I think when you're talking about some of the accolades some of these guys earned, you might think somebody more recent is maybe a better player, but they're not earning what these guys earn. So my point guard is Phil Ford. You can't get away from that in my mind. I considered Kenny the Jet just because I played with him, and I think he was outstanding, but I think he maybe was just more of a unique player coming in, and obviously did well in the NBA. But for the college career, Coach Ford was my point guard. The two guard. I mean, there's some guy that I don't need to bring up without any argument. Is Jordan was the man. I'm gonna put him at 2. I guess that you could probably put him at 3 if you wanted, but I'm putting him at 2. That's probably pretty easy pick.
Yes,
and there's some players and when I watched them play, and there's some players in the 90s I think were outstanding. So and this is probably where you get some controversy or some discussion, but I'm going to put at the 3. I guess you say the 3, and I'm putting Vince Carter. And I don't know, he may not be a 3 in the real sense of the word, but I'm going to put him at 3.
He's a small forward. Yeah, that works.
And I'm going to put James Worthy at the 4.
Okay.
And again, there's those tough picks in there. And like, for example, I think like that whole 90s, like Antoine Jameson, Jerry Stackhouse, those guys are outstanding. But then you realize like Stackhouse stayed for 2 years and Antoine stayed for 3 years. And I think Player of the Year once, but I think James Worthy is a pretty solid pick. And then I love me now the 4th, the big center. I put Rasheed Wallace.
Okay.
I love his game. He's obviously kind of a stretch center. But he was so physically just gifted and could do so many things, so long and just played so well when he was here. The fact that none of those teams from the mid 90s on win a championship is still boggling to me with some of those combos they had with him and Carter and Jameson and Stackhouse.
The 96-97 team, or no, the 98 team that went to the Final Four and just. Yeah, ran a gas in Final Four. Was it Utah, Arizona? I can't remember which one was they. Yeah. So
now, a little asterisk there. I think I want to throw in like guys I played with in the 80s. J.R. Reed was just dominant in college. You look at his NBA career and he just fizzled, but like in college, he was one of the best power forwards I think we had. But I still got to put the big game James in there at the 4th. So that's my picks.
So you got Phil Ford at point guard, Jordan at shooting guard, Vince Carter at small forward, James Worthy at power forward, and Rasheed Wallace at center. That is not bad. That is not bad at all. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring in Conor ONeil in just a bit from Devils and see if he can match a Devils starting 5 to go against this starting 5. So I'll give him that as well. Guys, Carolina Duke, it's Saturday on ESPN. Again, it's a game that always delivers, regardless of how we're feeling about Carolina right now. I'm still geeked going into the game. It's still the best rivalry in sports, in my opinion. Just the proximity for both schools, the history, the winning for both schools. The ACC is typically stronger when both Carolina and Duke are at the top of the league. It's just the way it is. No matter how many teams are in the league, wherever it is, the ACC is going to be stronger if Carolina and Duke are at the top. And right now, Duke is kind of carrying the load for the league pretty much. But Duke needs a spotter. I've always said that. Duke and Carolina are good for each other because they're spotters for each other. And Duke needs a spotter in order to stay Duke. Same for Carolina. And we'll see what happens on Saturday. But I'm going to take this starting 5 over here. I'm going to let these 2 guys go. I might bring you guys back for when they come to the Smith Center for part 2 of this rivalry here in a couple of weeks. We'll be coming back on it. So I'm going to drop you guys. But before I let you guys go, Pete, tell us what you're doing right now, because you said you're off on a new venture right now.
Sure. Well, I came back a few years ago, and I did start up a generator company as of last year. But within the last few months, I got my realtor license with Team Ruby here in Raleigh, Keller Williams Realty. And, part of that process for me is I'm just trying to get out there and be the man of the people for the Carolina people. And I love kind of getting around Raleigh and meeting people. So it's just a new stage in my life. It involves me getting out and doing things. I'm at the age where I'm not doing it for the money. I'm just doing it for something that I enjoy. So just started that recently and enjoying that process, but wanted to make sure that I could get that out there and let people know.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So that's Pete Chilcutt, RL Bynum from Tar Heel Tribune. Appreciate both of you guys coming through. Again, Carolina Duke on Saturday, and we'll be talking soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
And there they go. That's RL and Pete Chilcutt. As I bring on Conor ONeil, we have to get a retort here as we're kind of running out of space here. But the main reason why I wanted to bring Conor on, because I knew I was going to ask Pete Chilcutt his starting 5 all time UNC, something we usually do during the first half of rivalry week with Carolina and Duke. So I wanted to bring on a Duke person to give me their starting five to go against this. I don't know if you heard it backstage, Connor, but Pete picked a pretty good starting five. He's got Phil Ford at point guard, Michael Jordan at shooting guard, Vince Carter at small forward, James Worthy at power forward, and Rasheed Wallace at center. What are you doing? What are you going to do to combat the starting five from Pete Chilcutt?
So you've had me pick a Duke starting five before, and I've tried to mix it up and
that's right. You tried to go positionless. You tried to go like all
and I've tried to stick to positions here.
Yeah.
I've got one guy playing a position that he is not playing. If that's a little bit of a hint. And like full disclosure, like I'm 35 years old, so I'm a little lacking on the historical side of this thing. Like I think most Duke fans would say that Wojo would be their point guard. I don't have Wojo at point guard. I have Tyus Jones at point guard.
Okay,
I'd want a guy who is more of a scorer. I think he fits a little better. So I have Tyus at point. I do have JJ Redick at shooting guard.
Okay.
My out of position player is Cooper Flagg playing the three. He has not played the three all year, but he's going to play the three in the NBA.
So I think I know why you got him at three.
Yeah, I want him at three. And then, I mean, maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, but my 4 and 5 played together. I'm going Paolo at the 4 and Mark Williams at the 5.
Wow. Okay.
Everything about this team is built around Cooper playing some point forward, his penetration skills, taking advantage of the interior passing that I envisioned between Cooper, Paolo, and Mark Williams. Mark Williams in the dunker spot is very underrated. So that's where I would go. I would hope there's 3 guys on that roster, I think, that could win an ACC Defensive Player of the Year between I always thought Tyus was a good defender at point. Maybe not as good as his brother, but Cooper and Mark Williams are both ACC Defensive Player of the Year type players. So
I got mad questions. Because I'm sitting looking through it. I'm like, all right, my first question out of your starting 5, who's guarding Jordan? Is it JJ? You're putting JJ on Michael Jordan?
I mean, we're switching 1 through 5. So we're switching every, like this is Jay Lucas as defensive coordinator. We switch everything.
So that answers that question, because I'm like,
Jordan might be shooting over Mark Williams sometimes. I mean, that's not going to be a good look for us.
I'm kind of, and then you said you've been around 35 years. I was trying to think. So no Jay Williams, no Bobby Hurley might have been too much. Or no, you were how about Hurley, Leitner, Grant Hill? None of them made your start 5.
Yeah, I probably should have Leitner or Grant Hill in there over Paolo.
I would say Grant probably maybe. You'd almost be better off putting Flagg at the 4 and putting Grant Hill at your 3 to match up against Vince Carter. Although I'm not sure. Well, how tall is Cooper Flagg? 6'9"?
Yeah.
That would be actually an interesting matchup against Worthy. Because Worthy wasn't necessarily known for his defense, but that would be Worthy versus Cooper Flagg would be interesting. The Jordan JJ Redick thing, I don't even.
It's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, and then
I'll give you the Mark Gottfried. Like they've got to guard us too, pal.
Right. Yeah, and then Rasheed Wallace versus Mark Williams. Be interesting. I think Rasheed would try to intimidate Mark Williams. Like that feels like the vibe going on there. I'm not sure with the Phil Ford, Tyus Jones too, because Ford was more facilitator. That one might be a wash, maybe. And now, granted, Phil had way more experience. He was there all 4 years. Yeah. 4, yada. But that is very interesting. So you're 4. Did I convince you to move Banchero off and put Flagg down at 4? Or are you keeping it the way you got it?
I just keep the way I got it. I mean,
okay. So you got Tyus Jones at point guard, JJ Redick at shooting guard, Cooper Flagg at the 3, Paolo Banchero at the 4, and Mark Williams at the 5. Shout out to Mark Williams, who's actually playing pretty well. For the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets aren't playing very well. They can't seem to get out of they can't stay healthy. And at this point, to be honest, I'm like, Brandon Miller's out for the season. LaMelo just hurt his ankle against the Lakers the other night. Sit him to, let's lose all the rest of the game so we can get Cooper Flagg and stick him in this lineup. Because I think once you do that and they're all healthy, a lineup of LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Cooper Flagg, Mark Williams, Miles Bridges, that's a starting five you can roll with for like the next 4 years, really, and really grow,
And the other side of this is it's not like other lottery years or some other years. Like, there are good consolation prizes out there if you don't win the Cooper lottery. Like, if you wind up with Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, Asa Newell, Igor Denham, I think is the kid's name at BYU. I'm a big VJ Edgecombe believer at Baylor, and he's coming on strong the last couple of weeks. Like, there are a lot of dudes out there that are going to be picked between like 2 and 8 that are also going to be franchise cornerstones in the next few years.
So we're real quick before I get you out of here. Of course, Duke had State on Monday. Actually, it was a surprisingly close game. State being very feisty on Monday, which gives me a little bit of hope going into Saturday. But it is Duke Carolina. It's at Cameron. Your quick thoughts, just initial thoughts here on Wednesday on that game on Saturday. Do you think Carolina can pull off the upset, or does Duke have too much firepower this year?
I think the nature of this game and the way Duke played offense the last two games, it's not just against State. They struggled mightily at Wake Forest to score. It's a little concerning if you're a Duke fan right now. The Monday night game, I mean, you can kind of excuse that one because it's freshmen playing their first Saturday, Monday swing. Like, John and Cooper were very upfront about him not having the same type of pop that he usually has in that first half, and that's why he only had 5 points. So I think that's going to be ironed out. Obviously, they have a bunch of days in between this one. But on the whole, they were really rolling offensively for a good 3 weeks, and it has plummeted. Their offensive efficiency has really declined in the last 2 games. So if Carolina can D them up and make them miss shots the same way that Wake and State made them miss shots, this is going to be a closer game than people think.
Okay, so you're telling me there's a chance because
there's always a chance in this game, man.
I know. And see, and that's the thing I was telling people too. It doesn't really matter if Carolina's down or, and this is the weirdest Carolina team I've seen probably in a while, but I think they'll get up for this game. There's enough players on this team that understand what Duke Carolina is instead of it being transfers or implants coming in. I do think they'll get it. I think they understand it. I think they held Jalen Washington out of the Pitt game so he'd be ready for Saturday because they're going to need him because of the length that Duke has. I'm not going to sit here and say Carolina's going to go in there and upset Duke. I will say I won't be surprised if they do. I do expect Duke to win the game. It's at Cameron. Duke is playing better than anybody in the country except for probably Auburn at this point. But it's the rivalry. It's the greatest rivalry. In my opinion, it's the greatest rivalry in all sports because of the proximity and the records, the history. Both teams are winning or have won multiple championships, multiple sending players to the league and all this other stuff. It doesn't get much better than Carolina Duke. I saw people were mad that they were not going to show, what was it, Arkansas, Kentucky, I think it was, on ESPN at the same time or something like that because it's Calipari's return to Kentucky or something.
It was game day.
That's what it was. They wanted game day to go to Arkansas.
Fans are mad because game day is going to Carolina Duke instead of Calipari's return to Kentucky. Which
it's like duh.
It'd probably be a bigger deal if Arkansas was better than I think they were 1-6 in the SEC when they made the choice. I don't know what they've done this week so far, but it's not a very good Arkansas team.
Right, and even if it was, like, I don't think nothing's going to supersede Carolina Duke in college basketball unless they're just both down one year, which will never happen.
It's also a TV show. Like, it's a TV show, and Duke Carolina always gets the ratings.
Yep. There's going to be 2.5-3 million people that watch that game, regardless if Carolina's limping in or regardless if Duke's number 2 or whatever it may be. So everybody buckle up. Saturday, Duke Carolina, part 1. We'll have a little bit more on this on Friday. We got to get out of here, get you guys back to your cubicles and whatnot from lunch. Connor's busy. He is the publisher of Devils Illustrated and Deacons Illustrated. He also publishes for Wake Forest, so you can keep up with Wake and Duke through Connor and follow him on all social media platforms. We'll be back later on this week. The debut of the Pit Stop with Randy Pettit will be kind of in our Friday episode as they get ready for the clash at Bowman Gray with NASCAR coming into Winston-Salem here this upcoming weekend. So we'll get you ready for all that on Friday. So we'll talk to you here soon.